Hi, I'm Aliyah Aziz, and you're watching A News Weekend. Here are the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin announces an Easter ceasefire. Zelensky says Russian attacks continue despite the Easter truce. U.S. President Donald Trump considers halting peace talks if Russia or Ukraine make the deal too difficult. Iran and the United States have concluded a second round of nuclear talks in Rome. Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared a unilateral Easter ceasefire in Ukraine, ordering all military activities to stop from Saturday evening until the end of Sunday. However, Ukrainian officials report continued drone attacks by Russian forces.
Amid growing international pressure for a pause in the ongoing war in Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced a temporary ceasefire to mark the Easter holiday. Putin has ordered a halt to military operations in the region.
Based on humanitarian considerations, today starting from 6 p.m. to Monday, the Russian side announces an Easter ceasefire. I order a stop to all military activities for this period. We assume that the Ukrainian side will follow our example. However, our troops should be ready to repel possible ceasefire violations and provocations by the enemy, any aggressive actions.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Kyiv would adhere to the truce. He also reiterated Kyiv's openness to a full and genuine ceasefire if Moscow proves its sincerity. Meanwhile, Kyiv residents met the ceasefire announcement with skepticism.
Tonight, in Ukraine and especially in Kyiv, we expect missiles. There will be no ceasefire. Here is what I think.
I do not believe his statements because Russia constantly lies to the international community. They hoax and drag time to become stronger to start military actions again with new strength. That's what I think. It is sort of a game to drag time, in my opinion.
However, people in Moscow expressed cautious optimism.
I think any ceasefire is good anyway. On the other hand, I would like it to continue after Easter is over.
An Easter ceasefire is always the right gesture. It is good in any scenario. Maybe someone's life will be saved.
Despite the ceasefire declaration, Ukraine reported air raid sirens ringing out in Kyiv and Kharkiv just hours later. President Zelensky said artillery fire from Russia had not ceased between 6 p.m. Saturday and midnight. Military reports confirmed Russian assaults and artillery fire continued along parts of the 1,000-kilometre front line, with 387 instances of shelling and 19 assaults. Earlier, Zelensky stated that Ukrainian forces remained active in Russia's Kursk and Belgorod regions. Russia's Ministry of Defense also reported that its air defense systems had downed 2 Ukrainian drones overnight into Saturday.
In the previous bulletin, our Bakhtiar Hassanov discussed whether Putin's statement of an Easter ceasefire is a strategic move or a true humanitarian gesture with Ukrainian military expert Andrei Ordinovich, who explained on regard to Putin's statement, quoting that Zelensky questioned the sincerity of the gesture, suggesting it may be a strategic move, and the Ukrainian people continue to hope for peace lasting at least a day and a half.
I believe it for all Ukrainians as well as for Ukrainian political leadership. We would very much appreciate if it would be a strategic move. But based on our president quotation regarding this ceasefire, we are not believe it very much. As President mentioned it is really an attempt to play with human lives. And noted that the air raid siren was sounding across our country. It is exactly 45 minutes before the so-called ceasefire declaration. Easter, it is one of the biggest holidays in Ukraine, in this part of the world. And Easter celebrates the defeat of death and hope of salvation. And this act of exchanging prisoners of war, it was one of the elements of humanity. And we believe that the Russian will follow this kind of offer for the Easter celebration for Ukrainian people to have at least partially peace entire 1.5 days.
Russia and Ukraine have carried out their largest prisoner exchange since the war began more than 3 years ago. Both countries confirmed the exchange on Saturday. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said 277 Ukrainian troops were released from Russian captivity. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry reported that 246 of its service members had been returned. In a separate move, Russia handed over 31 wounded Ukrainian prisoners in exchange for 15 injured Russian soldiers, citing a sense of goodwill and medical necessity. This marks the biggest swap since the war began in 2022. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said there has been some progress made toward a peace settlement with Ukraine. However, he acknowledged that contacts with Washington continue to be difficult. Peskov emphasized that Russia was striving to resolve the conflict, but only while safeguarding its national interests. He says that Moscow remained open to dialogue with the United States. Thursday's meeting in Paris marked the first high-level in-person talks involving European powers around President Trump's proposed peace initiative. President Zelensky's office described the talks as positive and constructive. The United States will walk away from efforts to broker a Russia-Ukraine peace deal unless there are clear signs of progress soon, U.S. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Friday. President Trump stated that the United States will take a pass on trying to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war if either Russia or Ukraine makes it excessively difficult to bring the conflict to an end. While signaling frustration over the stalled progress, Trump stopped short of saying that the United States was entirely stepping back from negotiations. He emphasized that he still believes there is a strong possibility to end the conflict, suggesting that developments on the ground may soon bring the situation to a critical turning point.
If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that. No, Marco is right in saying it. We want to see it end.
Do you think Russia's playing you?
No, nobody's playing me. I'm trying to help. You know, this was Biden's war, by the way. By me getting involved, you know, they'll say, oh, Trump. This is not Trump's war. This is Biden. This is a war that should have never happened.
Rescuers in New Delhi are racing to find survivors after a building collapsed early Saturday, killing at least 11 people. According to local reports, over 20 people have been rescued and taken to the hospital after a building collapsed in New Delhi's Mustafabad area around 3 a.m. Footage showed victims being transported for treatment. Poor construction and lack of maintenance are often blamed for such incidents in India. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the military will intensify its campaign against Hamas following the group's rejection of a truce deal. His remarks come as protesters in Israel clash with police, demanding the end to the war and the release of hostages.
In a late-night televised address, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he has ordered Israeli forces to step up pressure on Hamas, calling this phase of the war critical. Netanyahu rejected demands to end the conflict, saying surrendering now would erase all the military's achievements. He emphasized his commitment to preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and revealed Hamas had recently turned down a proposal that could have freed many hostages.
We are at a crucial stage of the campaign, and at this stage patience and determination are required to win. If we surrender to Hamas's dictates now, all the tremendous achievements we have achieved thanks to our fighters, Thanks to our fallen, thanks to our wounded heroes, all these achievements will simply go down the drain.
While Netanyahu doubled down on military pressure, protests erupted in the central Israeli town of Mazor, where he was expected to visit. Dozens clashed with police, accusing him of dragging the war on needlessly.
So this war is just a war that had to end many months ago. There's no purpose, there are no achievements anymore. We just again and again in the mud of this war. And the fact that Bibi is a liar is known all over the world. I can't say more than that. He lies like I breathe.
Protesters carried flags, chanted slogans, and held photos of hostages, calling for peace and their safe return.
Iran and the United States have concluded a second round of nuclear talks in Italy's capital, Rome. Both countries have agreed to task experts to discuss the framework for a potential nuclear deal before meeting again in Oman next Saturday.
Iran and the United States have decided to bring in experts to begin discussions on a nuclear deal on Saturday. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that this agreement was reached following a second indirect meeting between the two sides amid President Donald Trump's threat of military action.
As
I said, the negotiations were held in a constructive atmosphere, and I can say that they are moving forward, and we are moving forward. There is no reason for too much optimism. We cannot say that we are really optimistic. We must be very cautious, but there is no reason for much pessimism either. We must walk a middle path, reasonable and calm.
In the meeting that took place last week, Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, held a 4-hour discussion. Iran, emphasizing that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, has agreed to certain limitations in exchange for the lifting of international sanctions. US President Donald Trump seeks a new deal to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. There are reports suggesting that Israel has not ruled out attacking Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran has expanded its uranium enrichment activities beyond the limits set in the 2015 agreement, causing concern in the West. According to Iran's position, halting uranium enrichment, reducing enriched uranium stocks, or dismantling centrifuges is unacceptable.
In our previous Bulletin talk show, we discussed ongoing nuclear talks between Iran and the United States and what it means for the Middle East and the world in general, with Tom Gross, political analyst from Tel Aviv, Israel, and Anna Evans, geopolitical analyst from Lisbon, Portugal.
And from Israel's point of view, the regime in Tehran having a nuclear arsenal is an existential threat. It's a bigger threat to Israel than to other countries because Israel is so small. A single small strike by any nuclear power, Iran or anywhere else, it's not clear that Israel will survive such a strike. So Israel is disappointed, I think, a little bit in that Donald Trump, on the one hand, he's been quite firm in saying that the Americans will not allow the Islamic regime to have a nuclear weapon. On the other hand, he's kind of giving mixed signals as well, that he wants an agreement for the sake of an agreement, rather than a real lasting agreement that for once and for all will prevent this regime in Tehran building a nuclear arsenal.
This is a historical moment in the sense that we actually have indirect negotiations. Of course, they are mediated by Oman and they are being held in a third country, Rome. But the geopolitical situation is very advantageous to these negotiations. First of all, because Iran has lost its frontline boots in the Middle East. So Hezbollah has been pretty much dismantled in its operational capacity. Same thing with Hamas. And the Houthis in Yemen are also facing a lot of attacks and also decreased capacity. So basically, those forces that Iran used at the front end of its Middle East influence, at the very end of its far-stretching influence and attempt over Israel, are pretty much dismantled.
Thousands of Orthodox Christians gathered in Jerusalem for the Holy Fire ceremony, considered as one of the most sacred rituals leading up to Easter.
Thousands of worshippers gathered on Saturday to celebrate the Holy Fire ceremony in Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre, believed to be the burial site of Jesus Christ. The ritual, which takes place every Holy Saturday, draws pilgrims from around the world. According to tradition, at exactly 2 p.m. local time, a sunbeam enters through the church's ceiling and lights a lamp placed in the tomb. After hours of waiting, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch emerged from the sealed tomb with a candle said to be lit by the holy fire. The flame quickly spread from hand to hand, filling the church with flickering light and chants, and then extended to worshippers standing in the narrow streets nearby. Located in the Christian quarter of East Jerusalem's Old City, the church remains a sacred place for many. Notably this year, Easter is celebrated on the same day, April 20th, by both Catholic and Orthodox Christians, a rare coincidence, as the two usually mark it weeks apart.
A 5.8 magnitude earthquake struck the Afghanistan-Tajikistan border in the morning hours of April 19. According to the German Research Center for Geosciences, the earthquake's epicenter was recorded at a depth of 92 kilometers. Although the event was felt across the wide area, no casualties or infrastructure damage were reported. Based on the magnitude and the affected population, the humanitarian impact is expected to be low. The earthquake's effects were also felt in parts of Pakistan and northern India. However, no significant casualties or property damage have been reported from these areas. Turkey's ambitions in aviation have soared to new heights. The nation's first domestically developed manned jet-powered aircraft, the Hurjet, has officially gone supersonic. This groundbreaking test flight marks a historic moment for Turkey's aerospace sector.
In a landmark test flight, Turkey's Hurjet advanced jet trainer has reached a speed of Mach 1.2, roughly 1,470 kilometers per hour. Turkish Aerospace Industries, or TAİ, confirmed the achievement, calling it a pivotal step in the evolution of Turkey's defense aviation program. The test demonstrates the technical progress behind the Hurjet and also underlines Ankara's commitment to enhancing its homegrown defense technologies. The Hurjet is a single-engine jet-powered aircraft designed for both advanced pilot training and light attack roles. It represents a critical element in Turkey's broader strategy to modernize its air force and reduce dependency on foreign military platforms. In a major development supporting this vision, TAİ has inked a significant deal with GE Aerospace for 100 turbofan engines that will power the Hurjet fleet. The plan is ambitious: deliver 100 aircraft to the Turkish Air Force and manufacture an additional 300 for global export by the 2030s.
The Istanbul Digital Art Festival is back in the spotlight. Supported by Turkey's Ministry of Culture and Tourism, it hosted an exclusive preview in Paris before its 5th edition this June. The event gathered key figures from diplomacy and art, showcasing how artificial intelligence is reshaping the future of creativity.
The international preview of the Istanbul Digital Art Festival was hosted at the Culture Center of the Azerbaijan Embassy in Paris. The event attracted over 200 attendees, including diplomats, artists, and cultural leaders from both Turkey and France. One of the evening's major highlights was the unveiling of Memory of Anatolia, an AI-powered digital artwork developed by Turkish art studio Hurjet. This immersive piece was created using millions of photographs from the Anadolu Agency's archives. It offers a unique portrayal of Turkey's social, cultural, and political history through the lens of machine learning, transforming decades of archival visuals into dynamic digital storytelling. Organizers explained that Memory of Anatolia is a reflection of the fusion between data, heritage, and artistic expression, creating a powerful and emotional experience that reimagines history through the eyes of artificial intelligence. The event also featured a captivating solo exhibition by Shusha, Azerbaijan's first AI artist. Shusha's live performance added a distinctive layer to the evening, further highlighting the growing global influence of artificial intelligence in the world of contemporary art. Azerbaijan's ambassador to France, Leyla Abdullayeva, shared her enthusiasm about the occasion. She noted that this marked the first time their cultural center had hosted a digital art exhibition and expressed hope that the festival would continue to foster global connections between artists and audiences, showcasing the transformative power of digital creativity.
Well, that's all we have for now at this hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.